listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. We are back live. Thank you for sharing part of your day with us. My name is Jerry Mitchell, your host for Give God 90. Sitting in her supervisor's chair is Myra.
Good morning, everyone.
The last, 10 days or so, so that would be like the last 4 shows, however many it was, I've lost track. We've had grandchildren running around, and we've replayed some older podcasts for you. And the amazing thing is, when I looked at just the statistics yesterday morning, everybody didn't care. There was as many listeners and downloads and all that good stuff as there normally is, and we really, really appreciate that, because
yes, we do.
You're sticking with it, and we try. But when you have a house full of people, it's kind of hard to take the time to put all this together and do the notes and keep everybody quiet. That's the hardest part. So we do this. If you're new here, we appreciate you especially. For everybody who has been listening, I typically try to mention the website and all of that good stuff, givegod90.com, at the beginning, to give people a chance as they kind of tune in to the ones who tune in live, I should say. They get here throughout the show. If you like what you hear, feel free to share. If you enjoyed it, chances are your family enjoyed it, your friends will enjoy it, and chances are great that your enemies need it. There you go. Don't forget the notifications. If you do that, it bumps up the ratings and the algorithms, and all that stuff helps everybody else find us easier. The chat room is open. If you want to leave a message on Spreaker, you can do that. There's a little message icon, and if you have the free speaker account, you can do that. The interesting thing, when I have a couple of weeks to, not spend time putting the notes together for these podcasts, is I get a chance to think about the conversations I've had over the last several months. And one of the recurring conversations I need to readdress because it has to do with raising children, but not just small children, adult children as well, right? Because we're all somebody's child. I know a lot of people don't like the word kid because it's actually a young goat. But, we've adopted that. The language has evolved to allow that. Now, about a year ago, we actually did a series about teaching children. And something that I probably I don't remember mentioning it then. I may have, but I don't remember. If parents don't teach their children, if adults who are in charge of raising children don't teach their children, somebody else absolutely will, right? Let's face it. Let's face it. If you don't teach young people properly, someone else may teach them improperly. That's just the way life is. Sometimes when parents or adults who are caring for children, they try to offer proper instruction. Children like to be a little rebellious. Well, sometimes they're a lot rebellious. It's amazing to me. I remember when I was growing up, I think we all can have these moments. They're going to do things you tell them not to do. And that's just the way it is. When somebody who is attempting to teach or instruct young people, and they say, don't touch that, well, we all know what's going to happen, right?
They're going to touch it.
It's going to get touched. Absolutely. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's wet paint, it will have fingerprints in it. If it's fire, somebody's going to get burnt, right? That's just the way life is. Because often we as people, mankind, we learn as much or more from our mistakes as we do from proper instruction. Sometimes it takes us a lot of mistakes. Sometimes we learn rather quickly. Now, when our daughter April, she still has a scar on her nose because she had to, she felt the need, she felt the urge to look over the edge of a dirt pile while Myra was down in a trench digging a hole or a line, a ditch, basically, for something at her grandmother's house. Now, April was told, flat out, do not come over this pile of dirt.
More than once.
More than once. I'm not sure which one of them was more upset when April wound up with a face full of dirt. But
probably me.
Probably you, because I think you screamed louder than she did. But she still has a little scar where the edge of the shovel just barely nicked her nose because she didn't follow her mother's instructions. It's that simple. Proverbs 22:6, everybody probably knows this, right? Train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they're old, they won't depart from it. Well, it may surprise some to learn that the word for train or teach there is actually where we get Hanukkah from. It's Chanuk. And it actually means to dedicate. When we offer diligent instructions and we're actually dedicated enough to ensure the child becomes instructed, trained, and dedicated to those instructions, it's going to stick with them throughout their life. Whether they follow those instructions or not, that's a different story. But they're going to remember them. Now, parents need to know exactly what the instructions are before they're able to teach them to their children. Because if you don't know what you want the child to do or the young person to do, or even the adult sometimes, if you don't know exactly what you want them to do, how can you tell them what they need to do? It's kind of impossible, right?
Right.
There actually is an example in Judges, as Myra's going to read from there.
There was a man named Manoah from the city of Zorah. Manoah was from the tribe of Dan. He had a wife, but she could not have children. The angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife. He said, "You have not been able to have children, but you will become pregnant and have a son. Don't drink wine or beer. Don't eat anything that is unclean. You will become pregnant and have a son. You must never cut his hair because he will be a Nazirite. He will be given to God from birth. He will begin the work of saving Israel from the power of the Philistines." Judges 13:2-5.
So Samson actually began the Nazirite lifestyle long before he was conceived. Now that might sound odd to some people. It does make things a little, confusing sometimes. But what this messenger was saying is Samson, the child that you're going to have, is going to be so, and I don't like the word endowed, but it's the one word that kind of fits in English. He's going to be endowed, he's going to be gifted by the Creator, but you need to start before he is conceived. Now, his mother didn't have to maintain the Nazirite lifestyle, but to make sure that Samson maintained that lifestyle, and he did for a long time, until he got a little rebellious, right? Anybody familiar with this passage knows that his mother was told exactly what to do, but later on, Samson made some extremely unwise choices, right? You know, he was a judge in Israel for a long time, but he made some poor choices. But he never forgot his upbringing. And the last moment, when he was at his lowest point, he remembered what he had been taught. And he was actually able to repent. And at that point, he pushed over the pillars that were in front of the temple of Dagon. Of course, it killed him. But he also, it is reported that he killed more Philistines that day than when he was alive. So even Samson, in all of his rebellion, doing all of the things that he shouldn't have been doing, remembered what he was taught. There's another passage that Christians should be familiar with. And it describes that even Yeshua, even Jesus, was a little rebellious. Just a little.
Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover feast. When Jesus was 12 years old, they went to the feast as they always did. When the feast days were over, they went home. The boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Joseph and Mary traveled for a whole day. They thought that Jesus was with them in the group. Then they began to look for him among their family and friends, but they did not find him. So they went back to Jerusalem to look for him there. After 3 days, they found him. Jesus was sitting in the temple with the religious teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and wise answers. When Jesus' parents saw him, they were amazed. His mother said to him, "Son, why did you do this to us? Your father and I were very worried about you. We have been looking for you." Luke 2:41-48.
Well, a lot of people don't think of this passage as Jesus being rebellious, right? Now, we could speculate that Mary and Joseph had told him they were leaving. It's kind of what you do, right? We're leaving. Stick with the group. Now, it was a walk back to the Galilee area where they were living. Think about it, though. You have probably hundreds of people leaving Jerusalem. A 12-year-old at this point in history should have been able to be trusted, especially among this group of Jewish followers. It's just the way it was. And, they looked around, probably figured, well, he's off with John, he's off with somebody. So at the end of the day, where is he? What's going on? Did he just simply choose to stay in Jerusalem and disobey his parents? He was a little rebellious, right? But the way Luke writes this, it almost seems like they were allowing him to do whatever he wanted to do. But I'm not sure that's really the case, because he had some proper instruction. He became wise, as it's written later, right? But his answer is almost sarcastic. Well, why did you have to look for me? Didn't you know where I was? If you just, come on. folks. If you just stopped and thought about it, you'd have figured out I was in the temple, right? That's what he's saying. He's just being a little sarcastic. Makes us wonder. Solomon was right. Nothing new under the sun, because kids today still do the same thing. Now, I'm not condoning the rebellion of children. Not at all. I'm just stating a simple fact that children want to go their own way. It doesn't matter how old they are. Today, though, we live in a different time. Were things dangerous in the first century? Absolutely. But there were different dangers than there are today. Today, parents who are believers face a lot of challenges. We may not be facing the Philistines like Samson was, but we are still facing evil being forced onto our children. In the United States, we have today, drag queen lap dancing in our schools. In Africa, they're still drafting even small children to fight in their armies. There's slave labor of all types, not only in China, but throughout the world. All around the world, evil's being forced onto the children. But can't we say the same thing about the children of our Creator? Isn't it the same thing? We might think that we're adults, but really, what do we do when we, as adults who are children of our Creator, what do we do when we face evil? Do we do what Yeshua did? And do we find a place where it is written in the Bible and then do what's written? Or do we turn the other cheek? Do we think if I choose to follow the Creator's instructions, I'm going to be tortured or I'm going to be killed? Then, in our fear, do we smile and go with the flow of evil? Think about that. Have you ever done that? Now, would any conscientious adult allow a child to play with fire without warning? That fire's hot. Don't touch it. Well, you know what the kid's going to do. But how often have we heard, why would a loving God allow terrible things to happen? But how many times do we step in and say, enough is enough? Does God allow these things, or do we allow these things? Isaiah 45:7. I form light, I create darkness, I make peace, I create evil. I, Jehovah, do all these things. When he chooses to allow evil into our lives, is it because he hates us? Of course not. That's just silly. He places evil in front of us so that we have the opportunity to say, no, not today. Myra has a pin or a t-shirt or something that says, not today, Satan. Not today. But think about how often we're faced with it. And what do? Do we turn and look away? Do we turn the other cheek? Or do we say, enough is enough? Is the Almighty putting these things in front of us and saying, what are you going to do about it now? What do you do? Are you going to take some action here? Are you going to do things my way? Or are you going to turn the other cheek? Are you going to look away? Are you going to stick your head in the sand and pretend it isn't happening? Too often, too often, we choose to touch the evil. Sometimes we get burned. Sometimes it destroys us. But sometimes we learn. And when we learn, we still carry the scars physically and emotionally. It is impossible to raise children in a safety bubble. You can't do it. You can't put a child in a glass case just for display. It doesn't happen that way. Our Creator knows it's impossible to raise His children in this fallen and cursed world in a safety bubble. So instead, He gives us His instructions to keep us safe. Now, we're still going to get hurt. We're still going to leave this physical world and what we know is death, because nobody gets out of this world alive. That's not the way it's designed to be. But the thing that makes each of us who we are, that soul that we have, that we're given, that will be safe if we choose to do things His way and follow His instructions. He might put fire in front of us, but His instructions to us teach us how to cook. And those instructions are pretty clear, right? He may put evil in front of us, but His instructions for us teach us how to recognize it and how to resolve it. And those instructions are very clear, but we're still going to touch it. Now, David says something very interesting here in one of his Psalms.
Evil people may try to destroy my body. My enemies and those who hate me attack me, but they are overwhelmed and defeated. If an army surrounds me, I will not be afraid. If war breaks out, I will trust the Lord. I ask only one thing from the Lord. This is what I want. Let me live in the Lord's house all my life. Let me see the Lord's beauty. Let me look around His temple. During danger, He will keep me safe in His shelter. He will hide me in His holy tent, or He will keep me safe on a high mountain. Psalms 27, 2-5.
Now, David's not talking about living in the temple here on earth. He was talking about all his life. Not the physical short life we think of, but his eternal forever life. When I was small, I remember it. My mother had one of those very early electric deep fryers. It wasn't plastic on the outside. It was metal, right? And when the oil was hot inside, and she would do whatever it was she was cooking in there, whether it was chicken or every so often, she would make donut holes. Not very often, but every once in a while. It would get hot, right? And I had to sit there and wait for those donut holes because you wanted them when they were hot. Well, I carried a scar on my elbow for a very long time because I got burned twice. Once by the thing, and once by her when she realized I had done something I shouldn't have done, and I was corrected for it. I learned that thing was hot the hard way. Our oldest son was talking about the time he got branded. And it was an accident, yes. He was holding a calf during a branding, and the branding iron touched his arm. And that scar now is hard to see. He remembers it happening, and he was looking for this. He said, "Which arm did I get branded on?" So some of those scars fade, but the memory is still there. It doesn't matter how old we are, as long as we're on this earth, we should be continuing to learn. And I really wish my parents had known this, and I wish I knew it when we were raising kids. We cannot allow our young people to make up their own minds about what sex they want to be. That's predetermined a long time ago. They want to allow children to do things now. Oh, my stomach's grumbling. They want to allow children to do things now, even before they can add and subtract. Before they're old enough to drive a car, think about this. All around the world, children are being overwhelmed with evil. Whether it is about sex, whether it is about slave labor, whether it is about killing other people, they're being overwhelmed with it. When parents tell me, well, I just want my children to make up their own mind, I just kind of shake my head. Would you allow your child to become a serial killer? Would you be okay with that? Maybe you don't care if they're a scoundrel. Maybe you don't care if they're an adulterer. We allow our children to play with fire just like we do every day because we're not familiar enough with the instructions for how to live the way we're designed to live. I still get a lot of questions about how to do Shabbat, how to do Sabbath. What can I do? What can I do? There's traditions that say a mother can't even carry a child outside of her own house on the Sabbath. If you leave, you can't lock the door because you can't carry a key in your pocket. That's not in the Bible, by the way. That is the traditions that have been added to it for some strange reason. There may be a reason for it, but I don't know what that reason would be. Our Creator provides us His instructions to make sure we stay safe in a world that's filled with evil. And He chooses to allow us to live as individuals, and He wants us to choose His ways above our own ways. We should be intelligent enough that we want to, I hear it. We should be intelligent enough that we want to not just allow our children to go their own way. Even the Almighty says, if you really want to go over there, if you really want to touch it, you're welcome to. But when a parent says, well, I want my children to go their own way, what they actually mean is, I want them to learn how to do things my way, the parent's way, the adult's way. I want them, I might not agree with them dressing a certain way. I might not agree with them eating certain food. I might not like them doing this or that. But as long as they're doing it my way, it's okay. Right? The parent says they can go wherever they want as long as they go where I want them to go. Think about that. I want to give them the freedom to make up their own mind, to make their own choices, as long as I agree with those choices. That's not freedom for the child. That's not teaching them anything. That's allowing them, that's actually allowing somebody else to teach them. That's allowing them to learn from someone who may be attempting to teach them evil. That's allowing them to learn from someone who might not have their best interest at heart. The Almighty gives us His instructions to make sure we stay safe when we are surrounded by evil. He chooses to give us the freedom to choose Him. He doesn't want some mind-numbed robot or, he doesn't want a bunch of zombies walking around, like I've seen some people do, with absolutely no freedom. He says you are free to do as much good as you can do for each other. He wants the worship of His created beings to seek Him out, to choose Him, to honor Him, to worship Him and Him alone. His instructions are there to keep us safe. He puts, that's the wrong word, He allows the evil in our lives because without it, we wouldn't have the choice. Without it, we wouldn't understand that, if you tell a child not to touch it, they're going to touch it. He gives us the freedom to make the mistakes, sometimes as individuals, sometimes as nations. But he gives us the freedom so that we know and understand why we should choose his way above our own way. We are the ones who have to choose to follow his instructions to the best of our ability. We shouldn't be making excuses as to why we can't. We should be embracing the ones we can. He doesn't want his children playing with fire. He wants his children to learn how to use it properly. And hopefully the parents who are listening to this, they want their children to learn how to use it properly. He wants us to be able to recognize and deal with the evil that we face every day. It's not playing with fire if you're cooking. It's not turning the other cheek if you're standing against evil. It's not all about just smiling and nodding and let people do whatever they want to do to you. Sometimes we have to stand and say, enough. My choice is to find where it's written and do what is written. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Thank you for joining us, and teach your children the proper way to live.
Absolutely. If you need some help with that, you can visit givegod90.com. There's things there that will help with that as you go through that program. Until Thursday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.